Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today we are actually doing a comparison video of 4 of the mainline Tyrannosaurus Rexes for the Mattel line. And 3 of them are actually my favorite of the entire line. One is just one I also happen to have because I purchased it for my kids. And there was a 4th one that I didn't include inside this because that was the one that went to the Legacy collection, which is previously on another video that went with the Explorer. But that one's a little smaller, and I was going to include that one in because that one definitely has a lot of different aspects about it than these ones, which kind of all generally have evolved from each other. So we're gonna kind of jump right into it in this video and first just name off all the ones that we're actually comparing. So you have here this is the Jurassic World, let's see, Camp Cretaceous Epic Roaring Tyrannosaurus Rex. You have right here the Jurassic Park Electronic Real Field Tyrannosaurus. Yeah, Real Field Tyrannosaurus. Let's see, you have here, this one here is the Jurassic World Dominion Thrash and Devour Tyrannosaurus Rex. And here you have the last one at the end is the Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Stomp and Escape Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, any of these that may have come with any additional, any kind of additional wear or gear, which is really only just this one, I actually do not have on hand and will not be present for the review. I'm sorry, the comparison. But this is pretty much a comparison, just comparing just the Rexes, so none of that's going to be important. I'm going to also inform that the Epic Roaring, the batteries have been removed because I didn't want it to drain its batteries as it was sitting for a while. And the Stomp and Escape, the batteries have gone dead on that one, which, you hear a little bit of sound coming through them, but that's not going to be the point of this because this is really reviewing the detail. Obviously, the features, I'll tell you about them and display them, but it's really just a comparison of just which one, the features that I like best on them. And then at the end of it, I'm going to tell you which one I like best overall. And yeah, it's just pretty much to help you guys figure out what it is that you guys might want, which one you guys might want to choose if it came to you guys picking up one. So let's jump into it. I'm going to tell you right off the back, this is going to be a long video. So first, I'm going to do a brief overview of each one. So let's just kind of clear the stage a little bit. And which one am I going to start with? We're going to clear the stage. And what I will do is I am actually going to start in order of the timing that they were released, because I think that's probably like the best way to do it, along with the fact that you might see evolutionary trend in regards to how they have began to evolve. So this one right here is the Epic Roaring. Of these ones, this was the first one to come out, and essentially I'm not going to go into too much heavy detail because in my past review I went and actually reviewed all of these on different videos. So all I'm going to really point out in this is for right now we're going to go with the gimmick. That's the first part about it. We're going to go with the gimmick of each one actually before we run through each aspect of each one. So this one's main gimmick or play feature is it would be able to, pressing the tail here, it would open up its mouth, and you hold it down, it would make a loud roar. You hold it longer, it gets even louder and starts shaking its head. And it also has this kind of puppeteer action where it can move its head back and forth. Let's jump into the next one that came out was this one. And some people actually suspect that this one was supposed to be for Dominion, but but they say that because Dominion was delayed, that it ended up just going to Camp Cretaceous. I don't know if that was the case or not. But in this one right here, the play features would be that it has the ability to stomp, and it would make a stomping sound, which is actually interesting because it seems reminiscent of the old school original Red Rex that had a stomping feature. Then you have where it would go like this, and unfortunately this one is not working correctly. My kids were playing with it a lot because this is theirs, but you would open up, like the mouth would open up when you press the button, it would lean upwards, and the capture gear would break off. But in addition to that, just kind of pull it back so you can kind of see it a little better. In addition to that, you know, it would have that kind of position, upright, and it would roar. I never was a fan when it's in that position necessarily, at least when the mouth was open. When the mouth is closed, it doesn't look bad, but that's not how it naturally goes. It normally would look like that. And I never liked that pose, but I do like it when it's in a stationary pose, one of my favorite positions, because I like, as I explained in the previous review video of this, that I always like the way that it stood, it stands. And let's see, so the next one we're going to get into is the Thrash and Devour from Dominion, just for its gimmick feature, or play feature. This one, the way it works is you press the button on the tail back here, and the mouth opens up. And I always was a very big fan. I'm not a big fan of this one. I'll tell you right off the bat, just before we even get into the video, this is the one that I like least, only because of the proportions of the head. I actually think that it has probably the best paint job in terms of that dark color. It looks really nice. We'll get more into that stuff later, but one thing I really do like about it with its play feature, the negative is they had to make the whole jaw and everything bigger, the whole head, the whole neck area, so it could accommodate the fact that you're able to put figures into its throat and it could hold them, but it can't swallow them, but it can just hold them in that general area. Now, with that being said, one thing that I really do like about this action feature is the motion of which it does its thing. So if you look at this one here, you could probably still see it in the background. I'll move that a little bit. It opens up its mouth, and then it would just be like, okay, it's roaring. This one is actually chomping like it's about to eat, but it thrusts the neck a little bit forward, at least that's the way it appears, and then the jaws open up as it thrusts forward, and it really has this feel of almost like, I don't want to say it's alive, but it has that feel like this is what a real T-Rex would do. You see how the neck thrusts forward, downwards, the jaws open up. I love that articulation, that motion, that way of motion, I think looks so nice. It's a small detail, but a lot of people probably wouldn't care or think anything of it. But to me, it's actually a pretty big deal because I really like that about it. Now, so that's the play feature of it. There you can see down there. I don't have a figure on hand, but you would be able to have a figure go about as deep as my fingers are touching the base now, go into there. That's the part of the play feature. And the other thing is the tail has similar to a puppeteer action of the Epic Roaring, but in this case, this Dominion one, let me call it by its correct, the Thrash and Devour, has a more side-to-side motion with the tail. Let me kind of do this where you guys can see it a little bit better. So if you had like a figure in its mouth, you would be able to, have it kind of shake around and thrash its food. Like it just grabbed a piece of prey and it's just shaking it around. So that has that kind of effect, where this one has a more dynamic effect where you can go side to side, more up and down. So this one's a more dynamic effect, but at the same time too, it's obviously, you see its mouth is more geared just for roaring with its play feature, while this one's actually geared for picking things up. Like sometimes you can actually pick things up the way it works and pick up figures. So that one's play feature. Let me not drag that out too long. Now, getting into the latest one, which I like a lot, and that is the Red Rex, the brand new Real Feel Red Rex. He's not officially called Red Rex, but everyone's gonna call him the Red Rex. So move this one over here. Now, his play features, I did a review video for him not that long ago as well. And his play features are, or gimmick features. He has the ability to press the button for him to roar. He doesn't have action motion with his mouth to make it, open up when you press the button. But he does have the ability to swallow figures. And I actually feel that this is an improved feature on the Thrash and Devour, and that he didn't have to have a bigger head to be able to swallow. You can see the proportion heads here. Not to have the Thrash and Devour take the spotlight of the figure we're on right now, but you can see the proportion, the size of the heads. They're not even comparable. I'll close his mouth for a second. This is huge. And then this one right here is a lot more in scale. And then opening a throat, like I said, it's not supposed to be, this is a comparison video, but we're just on the play features here. But I just want to compare to let you see how, looking down there, you can't really see down the throat at the moment, but the point is you can see how his thing is so much huger, and it actually could accommodate 2 human figures at the same time going down there. But the purpose of this one was just to be a space to hold things in. So as you pile in maybe 2 figures or even kind of 3 figures, if their shoulders were going more like, they're sideways, and instead of laying flat like that, they're laying like this, and you slide them in, you could probably fit almost 3 figures in there, and it's just a space to wait in there. So I guess that it's got to be big because you have the space waiting in there, where this one, they could go straight to the belly. So for that reason, they don't need this to be as big, because they're not going to be waiting in this area. They're going to be waiting in the belly. But I just wanted to show that to say that it works differently, obviously, and his play feature is that, along with the ability to retrieve them from the bottom where the slit is. So those are the 2 gimmick features or play features, because you actually play with those features. Another feature that is to be mentioned with him, which I guess you would say is a gimmick feature and less of a play feature, is he has the Real Feel skin. And I just want to make note that, to me, and everybody's different, to me, this is a feature that I put right up there with the way someone would put the Hammond Collection articulation. It's a feature where some people might say, I want my figure to have articulation. Some people might say, I want my figure to have Real Feel skin. Obviously, you can't really have both at the same time, but I definitely feel that that it goes hand in hand with that as a feature, as a gimmick feature, as a feature of the Rex. Real Feel skin or articulation. Some people just view it as something minor. So when they view, like, say the, and I'm going on a little rant here, some people might view the Hammond Collection T-Rex, which I could have purchased. I don't like articulation because I don't like the idea of a figure getting very loose. But some people would say that with articulation, they view it as like this premium feature. And some people look at this like this T-Rex and go, okay, well, it has the Real Feel skin. They may not value it as much and see it as much of a premium feature, but I guess all in the eye of the beholder. I personally consider Real Feel skin as just as equally premium, but in terms of taste wise, I prefer Real Feel over articulation, and that's just me. So anyway, I digress from that. But that is one of its gimmicks. So there you have that going along with it. Now we're going to jump into now that we went over the features and the gimmicks of, or play features of, the T-Rexes. We're going to now jump into The next category is the details of the head. And then next we're going to go into the details of the body. But we're going to start with the head because I feel the head needs its own little kind of area that we dive into because there's so much detail. There's so much detail in the heads of these T-Rexes, and this is really what makes them stand out. One of the biggest aspects or features or details of them is that. So we're gonna really try to jump into that at this moment and compare the different ones. So I'm not gonna go in any specific order right now because I'm gonna try to compare a lot of them side by side and just kind of really jump into it. But taking a look at the sorry about the placement of these. Taking a look at the epic Roaring. I'm not going to be specifically in any specific order, but the reason why I'm jumping into this one first is just because it was the first one that came out. I just want to know that it know that it set that tone. You could see the details in the face, and a lot of people always would say that the details were phenomenal for that time, and even now how it has all that kind of details. It has a little bit more of a matte finish versus say the Stomp and Escape, which I had mentioned in a previous video about how the Stomp and Escape is a little more, in my opinion, let's pull back a little bit on the camera, in my opinion, is a little more like because it's glossy. It has less of that matte feel because light shines off of it very well and gives it a more glossy feel. Now, this one always had a little bit more of a matte feel in regards, and the ridges and everything. This sculpt of this head is exactly the same as the sculpt on this head. Let me put them both into a field of view. You can see them well. This one is the exact same as this one from what you can see here. The difference is because this one's a more of a matte finish, you get a lot more, the detail feels more finer and you can see it better, or this one feels like it's almost like the equivalent of a fuzzy photo versus like a sharp photo. You know, that's the best way I could describe it. The detail is there, but then when you look at this one next to it, you just see the little more fine. It feels like more finer. It's not as smoothed out. It feels like more like sharp, more grainy, more like, you know, you can really see it, see the small details better. I'm not going to say, I overall will say that I like that better about this one, but I'm not going to make this one a huge negative because of the fact that I do feel that makes it a little more, it feels like it has a more softer coating that gives it a little more play resistance, if that makes any sense. Like it won't probably scrape as much because it does feel like it has this kind of smoother texture over it. It won't scrape as much, whatever the case is. I do like the paint job on this one a little better than this one in regards to having that a little bit more dynamic. You see the black around the eye coming into a little bit the beginning part of the nose. I want to also point out too, the teeth. I wish I could get all the T-Rexes on screen at the same time. It's kind of hard. This is going to definitely be a task and a half. Let's see if I could kind of manage that a little bit. So, since the Red Rex doesn't have the whole automatic opening mouth, I'm just going to leave his mouth open for now. The Dominion one you can see has the enhanced paint job similar to the, I'm sorry if I get confused with calling this one the Dominion one or the Thrash and Devour. It's easier to remember as the Dominion. So just, you know, if I call it the Dominion one, just that is part of its name, but just makes it easier. So the Stomp and Escape started the whole darkening around the eyes, more details in that regards. You can see that the Thrash and Devour one has enhanced that even further with darkening coming around the ridge of the nose further, darkening now on the very tip of the mouth or nose where the Thrash and Devour, where the Stomp and Escape didn't have that. And so it's like the evolution of it because this one came after that. You could see more darkening coming around like the cheekbone area from the eyes. It does have a different color type on the bottom of the jaw, similar to the Stomp and Escape, but how the Epic Roaring didn't have that, so it's all one color, which is more movie accurate to the original movie and the original Rex. But at the same time, this one has, the more dynamic you have the colors on the head, it feels like it just feels better. You know, it feels like there's just more going on. It brings more attention to the detail, to your eyes, to look at it and immediately go, you know, I like that about it. And then let me try to throw this guy into the mix here, the Red Rex, and kind of get a little bit on him. So here you could see with the Red Rex, now he has a lot of details as well. Let me also note too that he actually has the best proportionate head of all of them, because in a previous review video of this one I mentioned, and in previous review videos of each of these, excuse me, I had mentioned that when you compare the head, so the length of the skull of a T-Rex, generally speaking, is supposed to be 5 feet or up to 5 feet. You take the Owen character, and let's just assume like a regular, I had Owen character in my previous videos, I don't have them now, but you could check back of those. If you take a regular 3 3/4 inch figure, if you assume that they're 6 feet tall, just using it as a basis for to kind of get a sense of the height of the characters. And I use that 6 feet because of whenever you have those kind of dinosaur books and they compare a little man next to the dinosaur, it always says the man is 6 feet. So with that being the case, if you take that figure and you put that figure next to the skull of one of these T-Rexes, the Stomp and Escape or the Epic Roaring, you see that their jaw is bigger than, I compared it to Owen, so I'm just going to say Owen. It was bigger than Owen. When you compare his jaw line to Owen's length, it was a little bit smaller, which then would say, well, Owen is 6 feet and his skull is a little bit less longer, then it equals 5 feet. So proportionate wise, and I'm sorry that I dragged all that out to say that, but I said it to say that's why his skull is more proportionate. But going back into the detail of things, I love the eye, the way the eye looks on this one. I like the way the eye looks on this one too. I actually think this one's eye actually almost looks even a little bit better now that I look at it, but I like the eye on the Stomp and Escape as well. The Epic Roaring, I am not a fan of the eye, but I'm going to tell you why. This one is based off of the cartoon, and even though this one says it is too, but it kind of, like I said before, it could have been based on the Dominion movie, but just came out late because the movie was delayed, so they just branded it Camp Cretaceous. If that is the case, this one's eyes looks like it's cartoony. He has personality. I can't really describe it other than, and I don't know if you can see it conveyed through the video. His eyes looks like he has personality in it, and a cartoon does that. A cartoon tries to make the character feel like they have a personality, almost like a human personality behind it. When they're looking at you, when they're staring at you, they're thinking in that kind of way like a human would, where these have that kind of more animal look in the eyes. And you know, let me see. I hope that can be seen with this one a little bit better. I know it's hard because the focusing is all over the place because there's so many T-Rexes. Let me move this one over here like that. And so yes, I love the eyes on that one. This one continues that trend where the eyes definitely look like an animal, like something that's staring at you. It's angry. It wants to eat you, but not in the sense like it has a personality. And I feel this one has that. Post in the comments if you feel that way, if you have these in person, you ever compared them, you felt that way, or if you can, if that's being conveyed through the video and you feel that way, let me know. This one right here, I feel the Thrash and Devour one. Let me see. I feel that it also has that kind of more serious kind of look to it. I don't think I think the eyes, yeah, I would say it's comparable to these three here, but definitely the Epic Roaring back here is definitely the one that I feel the eyes, it's a small feature, but I feel the eyes are not, they are a little more cartoony. Now I want to jump into it's so hard to manage all these T-Rexes at one time. I want to also get into continuing back, like I said, with this, the detail on this one right here. I don't want to compare it with the Epic Roaring one. That the detail on this one here is even more matte than this one. So at the time, I thought this one was very a matte finish, and it looked very, you can see all the details very good. This one enhances that even further because though this one is very nicely detailed, which it is, I'm not taking nothing away from it. I feel like when something's more matte, it feels, I'm not going to say it feels, I don't know if to say it feels more detailed, but it definitely, you almost do feel like you could see, it's different. It's different. We'll just say it's different, but the matte finish just brings it more alive. So this one gets even more enhanced because let it be noted that though this thing has real feel on the body, which is soft, and then the skull is not as the soft plastic or rubber, whatever that material is, as the rest of the body, it still is different material than this. You hear that? You hear that? It absorbs the impact because this is softer. So it's still, even though it's not as soft as the rest of the body, it's softer. And so it does have a more matte finish. It does have a more fleshy feel to it. And I feel that it holds the detail. It's different with the detail. This one has just as much detail, but it just feels different. And it also helps the fact that since the head is a little smaller and more proportionate, it allows the smaller detail to, I feel like it shines a little better. You can see here the eye painting around there. It's not as dominant, dark as the Dominion one or the Stomp and Escape, but it has enough going on. The paint coming around the nose. I definitely feel that this one has a lot more natural versus the other ones. Let me bring in one of the other ones for the purpose of comparing the paint aspect in the face. We'll use this one because this one I said had the best, in my opinion, best detail for the paint. This one is a little bit more, I think, natural in the regards of, if you saw a T-Rex in the wild, just that pattern on the nose, striping, would be like, okay, attracting a mate. It has that vibe to it. Where this one looks very nice in terms of like the way they applied the paint in dark area, but it definitely is more like, hey, for the movie. And obviously this is a red Rex. So, some people would be like, hey, that's not how it is in the movie. Some people will say, quote unquote, a Rex wouldn't have that kind of color skin. I like to beg to differ. It's very possible because, certain creatures, especially males, will have, bright colors and a lot of kind of different stripes and things like that to attract the mate. So when you look at it from that perspective, not that this is supposed to be into a real life biological, how would a real T-Rex be per se, because we're going off the movie version, but it definitely gives that feel of like, okay, like that striping and pattern would be a little, in my opinion, a little more realistic towards like how something would be in the wild, which I think is very cool in that regards. And that's probably why the original direction they went with having a red T-Rex in the first place may have been that, hey, let's make it bright, because guess what? Maybe in the wild they are bright. Maybe they attract the mate. Maybe the females have a more dull color and the males have this bright color. Who knows? Anyway, going back to the point of it all, going into the detail thing. So I really like the detail in that one. So I want to say that this one probably to me has like the best facial detail, along with this one having, being right up there with it, the Epic Roaring for facial detail. Now, when it comes to we're going to get into, I'm going to have the Red Rex here for this comparison right here, into the innards of the mouth. I pointed out how I really like it. Let me get this closer so you can see this. I really like how see that detail on the tongue, all those little like rivets and little like marks. I think that's really nice the way they did the tongue on this one. I think that like, to me, this is, of all the ones that have just a tongue that doesn't move, that is the best tongue that I feel I've seen. And I really like that, how they did that. I also think that these parts here work pretty nice too. I don't know what you call those. I don't want to say cheeks, but I guess like the jaw muscles, we'll call them, for lack of a better word. And I like the way they did that too. It's basic, but it works. You know, not as over the top as the Hammond Collection one, even though some people think the Hammond Collection one is going to probably eventually wear down because they're rubber. And who knows what will happen, say 10 years from now. But I like that. I really am a fan of that there, the way that tongue looks. Now you look at this and it has your basic tongue. So I would consider, like, if you're on a scale of 1 to 3, this would be a 1, and then that would be like a 2. This tongue right here, it's nice, it's smooth, it's shiny, but it definitely feels more toy-like. There's a little bit of bumps in it, but it is not as pronounced as this one. And obviously because of the play feature, it gets cut short to be a smaller tongue. And then when we look at the Stomp and Escape one, his tongue is smooth with no bumps on it, and you could see it's longer. It definitely has a nice look to it, but it's still basic, and I would consider this on a scale of 1 to 3 a 1. Or like I said, I consider this one to be a 2. I think that's the best tongue that you have for a basic tongue. But then obviously you jump into the most premium tongue, and I'm going to move him more aside this way. The Epic Roarin, who his tongue is, not only you see the older figure, his tongue is also the same one that went into the Hammond Collection one, and it's super realistic. You have like little texture of bumps on it, separations on it, lines, just the way it feels. It actually is separate from the base of the jaw. So, you know, it's an independent tongue of its own. It's not overly thick, like, even though I don't have this one on me right now, but the one from the Legacy, which from the T-Rex Escape Pack, I believe it was called, the one with the Explorer. I don't know what that original Rex was called, because I know it's a remake of an original one. You can post in the comments what the name of that one is. That one has a independent tongue as well, but it doesn't really move around like this, and it's a lot thicker, and it's okay. It's an okay tongue, but I still would rate that tongue equal to, on a scale of 1 to 3, probably equal to or even below this one's tongue, because even though it is independent, it moves like a little bit because it stands out. It's just smooth. It has nothing about it as realistic, where this one is the best tongue that they've made. It's just great. There's just no doubt about it. It's just great. And even underneath it too, you've got details underneath it. I don't know how well that's coming up, but yeah, it's great. Now, obviously that leaves the bottom of the jaw to be left a little like, hey, bare, but still you can't knock it, because half the time you just got the tongue sitting right above it, and it's great. Now I want to jump into another detail that that I think is pretty important, and that is the teeth. So we're going to start with this one's teeth, the Thrash and Devour, and its teeth are, all of them have separately molded teeth, which is great, because everyone have said this in previous videos and comments, that, and it's great because it's, one, it can be its own color, so you don't got to worry about paint wearing off. 2, it is, you know, instead of hard plastic, it is soft, so that material just feels like it works better in terms of, you don't have to worry about chipping in the same way. They can be damaged, yes, but it's different, and you don't have to worry about having paint on them, because now it can have this natural bone color. But, you know, digressing from that, this one right here is not, the teeth are a bit blunt, but they look really nice. They are a little bit more blunter than some of the other ones that I'll have here, but they do look nice. There's nothing wrong with it. You could see here how they sit into the bottom of my jaw too, which actually is pretty nice here, even though, keep in mind, this is an oversized mouth. This one right here on the top, you can see how it sits. It's mostly to like the edge of the teeth of the jaw line here. And the reason I'm pointing them out is because one of them is going to actually be a little different than that. When I look at here, the Stomp and Escape, and this was actually the first one that I've actually had in my collection of these ones. And so here you can see the wearing of the teeth, which is kind of cool in that it's almost like the T-Rex eats and chomped his tooth. But here you can see a problem that I always saw with this one. which could happen with, I guess, almost any Rex, but I really just kind of wanted to point it out, is the fact that, so this one, the teeth are on the outer part, but this doesn't go inside in the jaw. Now on this side of the figure, it does go into the jaw. So this part goes underneath like the lip area of the jaw. But on this side, it doesn't. It goes on the outside of the jaw. So that's like a quality control thing. But, and you can kind of see here at the top how it does that. That one's in it and this one's not. And so the ones on the bottom are fine. Let me try to angle this a little better. The ones on the bottom is fine. But essentially the reason why I point that out is, and even the ones on the bottom, they're still like at the very edge of it, even though they're fine. But I point that out because I feel that the Red Rex actually fixes that, even though it does things in a kind of different way, in terms of changing the dynamic of it a little bit. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. I just want to point out that the Stomp and Escape's teeth are quite sharp, and this one has like the same type of teeth. So I just want to, you know, show these and show how these are actually the same type. They're very big. They're very pronounced teeth. They both have like the same type of teeth. This one's quality control is a little better in keeping the teeth into the jawline a little better. Let me see if I can get that at an angle where it's in there a little better, but it's not great because it's still on the outer part of the lip where the mold of the teeth mold to the outer lip. They're not inside the lip. And the same on this side too, actually. It's not in the lip. It's almost like on the outer. This one's kind of a little bit in the lip and a little bit on the outer. So what that means is, just to give a kind of clear explanation of it from what's happening with this one here, because it's going to end up happening to yours, is that this part here sometime will come out. These teeth will drop. And let me see if I can display that here. Sometime it will drop. It will come down, and then you can kind of see, if you look there, you see that, how you can see that line that it's coming down. I'm hoping that it's able to pick that up. I don't want to pull them out or whatever, the teeth, but then I would have to push them upwards to make sure that they were in a little better. So, and like I said, I'm going to get into a moment why I'm pointing that out so particularly, but these teeth are very nice. They're big, they're sharp, they're really good, and they proportionally they fit with the size of the head. Now, with that being said, the Red Rex, the teeth, you see how big that lip distance is versus the other ones, where it's not hanging on the edge of the lip. Now it's in the lip, it's deep in there. So let me move this because it keeps trying to focus on the other Rex. So you could see here how it's deep inside there. So now you'll never have that problem where the teeth are like, you know, falling off the edge or hanging off the side of the lips. It's designed totally differently. And the ones on the bottom look nice as usual, but even they have a more deeper recess in the jaw lining than the other ones, where you can see here, see how much it appears on there. Yeah, you can see how much lip this one has. I'm trying to get it to focus a little better. How this one has this right at the edge, even on the bottom, and this one has so much extra lip at the bottom, separating the teeth from the outer lip. It may seem like a small amount, but in terms of the scale of figures, it's a lot, and it protects the teeth from falling out later on from you chomping them, this and that, like how my Stomp and Escape one I showed you, that it kind of had like a chip in the tooth already, and it looks cool in terms of like, hey, a T-Rex is biting into chips tooth. Most kids are not going to want that to happen. These ones also, because they're dig deeper inside there into the jaw line, they're only like partially exposed. Half of it's probably going up there, half of it's like down here. So it shows less of the tooth. But they're a little more protected in that regard. So like that part's cool. Now I will say this, these teeth though are not as sharp as the Epic Roaring or the Stomp and Escape, which both have the same type of teeth. You can see that these ones are definitely more pronounced, each one, and they're chunkier. But like I said, keep in mind this one's head's scaling for its head is a little bigger, so proportion of it, so it's gonna have bigger teeth to go align with it. Now these ones are not as like big and chunky and like separated, where this one, each individual tooth is like separated, big pronunciation between each tooth. Like, you know, it's like an individual, it almost looks like they put each individual tooth in there. That's how separated they are in between teeth. This one is not as much like that. But so the teeth themselves are not better than this one or the Epic Roaring. I do think that the Thrash and Devour is a little bit more, he's not standing up on me, is a little more bland in terms of the sharpness of his teeth, more comparable to the Red Rex. But in general, the Red Rex, its teeth, I don't think they're bad at all. I think they're fine. They're not better than these teeth in terms of the individualness of them and the sharpness of them, but they are better in the aspect that they're more recessed, and they really, I feel, put that work into the jaw, making them have lips and having that sense, not outer lips that go, you know, cover the teeth completely, but enough that like it gives more better structure to the teeth. I feel that attention to detail was such a big deal to me. A lot of people may not care about it, but to even do that, I felt like was just such a big deal to even bother to consider to do that when you didn't have to do it, and no one would have known the difference. But I noticed the difference. So like I said, a small negative on the sharpness of the teeth versus the other teeth, but a big positive in terms of the layout of the teeth and how they're recessed and how everything kind of functions together, which overall I think is a bigger positive than negative. And I like these teeth the best because of that, you know. So that is the teeth aspect of it. Yeah. Other than that, just want to quick make a note. You could put a person inside this mouth and just let them sit there, and just the legs will be barely hanging out. This one obviously will swallow them down where you can't see them anymore. The Epic Roaring has the least amount of space inside his throat, so you can't really put a figure that deep inside there if it's just for the purpose of pretending like he's swallowing. And obviously the Red Rex is the best in that department. Now we're going to jump into the next category, which is just the details of the body. And the whole rest of the body, the tail, and I'm going to kind of really dive into, for a short, brief moment, the neck area as well. I'm not going to dive long on the neck area. This one has this kind of little flap extra piece to give it that articulation. I suspect the way it is that underneath this flap right here is just empty space, allowing this thing to articulate. And so there's just to cover up that joint that's going on there. And you know, it might seem like a little funny to some aspects, but a lot of times you overlook it and don't pay attention, and it kind of like your mind just kind of deletes it from being a thing. So that's not a big deal. The Red Rex obviously has just smoothness, and it's so great because he has flexibility just off the fact that his skin is just bendable. I don't want to bend it all that hard, but it has a little bit more mobility to it, even though it doesn't have to have flaps and joints because it's, you know, real feel skin. So that in itself goes to that play feature, which I think is a great benefit. This one doesn't have nothing like that either. So visual-wise, it looks great, but it doesn't have any kind of neck articulation. So, you know, that could be seen as a negative. So you're giving up, trading up one aspect for another. And obviously this one right here, it doesn't have it inside the neck, though it has like its body has almost like an additional section so it can do the whole shaking back and forth. But this Dominion one, the neck and area is just extra wide and big because of that. I want to also point out that the Stomp and Escape is the only one ever to have painted fingernails, and I don't know why they did that, and no other one ever got that. It's a huge plus. And I feel like it doesn't get enough credit because when you have a whole line of ones that came before it, like the Epic Roaring and all the ones way before that, you have the ones that come after it, the Minion one, Thrash and Devour, didn't have it. You have the brand new Red Rex, which doesn't have it, but it's, you know, a homage to the original Red Rex, which didn't have it either. So maybe you could say it gets a pass. This one, the Stomp and Escape, had it. So that's automatically a huge plus where you're like, well, it has it. So I got to give that credit to that. Getting into the main body area. So obviously this one the Thrash and Devour, you know, has that kind of additional layers to that because of the movement. It's okay, it's fine, but when you look at that body in relation to the head, it just throws everything off, and the proportions of everything. Now, this one is actually the Epic Roaring has the thickest body, and it's actually also the widest body in that regard. So a lot of people like that in terms of just the heft of it, and I definitely think that that's a positive too. It's thicker in its body than the Stomp and Escape, which came after it, which has a more slimmer profile because of this action feature to lift this body like that, which is fine. This one's body proportions is not bad either. Like the thickness of the body, it's not as wide, but it still looks nice, decent size. Now the T-Rex from Jurassic Park was never like a very heavy with a huge fat gut like you might see on some you know, Discovery Channel type of shows and stuff like that of dinosaurs, where the T-Rex has a big bloating gut. It never had that kind of body design, the T-Rex, so you're not going to really see that. So the Epic Roaring one has like pretty much the biggest stomach in that regards, you know, of any of the mainline ones, not including the Hammond collection, which the Hammond collection I don't think is very big either in that regards, but overall it's a bigger Rex than most of the other mainline ones, so I'm not gonna speak on it that much because I can't really recall and I don't have it in front of me. This one, on the other hand, in terms of the body, is definitely a lot smaller in proportion to like the Epic Roaring, but I guess you could say it's almost comparable to the Stomp and Escape in terms of its body dimension, but it's still a little bit smaller. This one actually takes its body design from, and I had a brain fart when I was doing the review video of this one, of what it was called the Colossal T-Rex. This has that same frame and opens up in the belly area, obviously because it has soft skin, it doesn't open the same way, but it's the same concept with I believe the same swallowing mechanism taken just from that same one. So its body shape is just like that, which was always a little bit more slim up here, almost like a triangle or cone kind of shape, where it's slim up here and gets fat like there, where you have the Epic Roaring feels more like just a barrel body. It doesn't even feel like a cone. It's more like this part is slim and then you have this big cylinder or barrel of a body. So it's definitely different. And it's very interesting to know that this one has the Red Rex, and I'm sorry, I'm just always going to call it the Red Rex, even though it's the real feel Tyrannosaurus Rex. But the Red Rex, it has the smaller proportion and smaller stomach. It's the one that actually holds figures in the stomach. So I always marvel at the fact that they were able to do that. I'm not saying that it having a smaller body is necessarily better, but I'm just pointing out the fact that you have all that room to fit figures in it. And people have done videos where they fit like maybe 3 figures inside there, 3 of the regular line figures inside that stomach. Some might be a little bit in the throat, but the point is that you're fitting all that in there. It's pretty amazing. But anyway, so that's its stomach design. I also want to point out too that I forgot to mention when I was covering the arms. This one, though it doesn't have the paint on the arms, it does have the shoulder joint to come outwards. I don't like moving it much because it gets loose. I think it'll get loose over time, and that's one thing I hate about articulation. I personally would have been more of a fan if the arms were more like just the regular ones that just move front and back, just because I don't like things getting loose. This doesn't come outwards like towards you, while this one does. But for those who like that, they can mimic the old school Red Rex, which had his arms outwards like that because they were just weird. But anyway, so the rest of the body, the legs, everything's fine in that regards. To all of them are pretty much, I'm not going to say the same. The height on his, you can see where his is probably around the same as the Thrash and Devour, but the Epic Roaring has just a different pose in the way his leg is, even though it's not higher in height, but it's actually a bigger leg because it has, in my opinion, it looks like kind of, excuse me, hiccups, a bigger leg in regards to just that, look at that pose. Well, let's see, because actually the one leg that's stepping forward on the Red Rex is actually over here. So let's see how that looks. I guess they're about the same. There's just more beef and bulk inside the Epic Roaring in general. And that applies to all the rest of them. So I'm not going to go through all the rest of them in that regards to the legs, other than to point out the mechanism that goes with the Stomp and Escape gives it the ability to have these joints. And even though they're not posable joints where it stays in that position permanently, I do like that you see that it's able to have that joint and it's able to have that kind of bounce back from the spring because of its mechanism. Because like I said, I'm not a fan of loose joints, so it's nice that it has a kind of temporary articulation that will bounce right back into the position it needs to go into, along with the fact that it kind of semi collapses under its own weight, giving it this sense of like it's got weight and like the joints kind of fall into place under its own weight. So I think that's kind of cool.